All right, episode 1, Center Court, Coach Dakota Webb. If you guys are watching on YouTube, Facebook, appreciate you checking it out. If you're listening to the podcast, enjoy that drive, enjoy that run, whatever it is you're up to. Kind of like everything else I do, this is touch and feel. I don't have a clue what I'm doing. But I do know 2 things. I love interacting with people. I love basketball, right? And especially if it's good people that know what they're doing in the basketball space. So without further ado, I got Coach Darin Meinders, currently at Baptist Bible College. If you had to introduce yourself, if you had like to give somebody a backstory or just a quick summary, what would you say?
Probably somebody that is super passionate about basketball, super passionate about his kids and players, and somebody who loves the game.
That's awesome. Last year, right, or just earlier this year, you were inducted into the Missouri Basketball Coaches Association Hall of Fame. Is that right?
Last April.
Last April?
Yeah.
I was going back and kind of looking at that inductee speech, watching that over again, and your win record just always stands out to me. Like regardless of the level, like you've been coaching 26 years, you got like a 71% win record, like 530 something wins, if I remember right. 6 Final Fours.
Right.
Like I don't really care where you're at. That's impressive, right?
You know, and it is. But it has very little to do with me. It has to do with me having great kids that play hard, buy into what we say. And so, you know, I think I said at that speech, I never got into coaching to get into the Hall of Fame.
Right.
You know, I got into it so that I could develop kids, touch kids' lives and help them be better people. And so, but basketball-wise, you know, I tell people the reason I'm in the Hall of Fame because I'm old and I've had good players.
It's like if you hang around long enough, right, give yourself a good chance. No, I definitely can empathize with that. I think like the reason I ultimately got into coaching, you know, like I kind of left the game with a sour taste in my mouth. Had a solid high school career, but I sucked in college. And so I had a really bad experience and kind of had to grow up and look at myself. And I took a year off, like away from the game, and missed it. You know what I mean? And I got to thinking about, you know, how to stay around the game, what to do. And like I always came back to Coach Linehan, my high school coach, right? And I was very much in need of like all of the father figures I could get. And like my dad is amazing, right? But you know, I was adopted when I was 14, moved in with him when I was 12 with my mom and dad. So, you know, we were still kind of young in our relationship, and my coach was like a second dad. And I think that's kind of like anytime you got a guy like you that can kind of, you know, obviously the X's and O's are important, but there's an awful lot of people that know X's and O's.
Right.
And they're like not good people.
You know, again, it's about relationships. It's the ability to communicate. You know, very few people realize I got out of coaching for 2 years and went into just administration. Right. Which is kind of the typical role. You, as a coach, you get out, you move into administration so you can make some money. And literally just did not enjoy not being around the game, the kids. And so, you know, I used to tell people or talk to people, and you know, that had done that, and they say, oh, I miss the games or I miss winning, but I didn't miss practice. Right. And, you know, I said, well, I miss being in the gym and practice.
Right.
I miss being at the practices, and I miss the losses. Because the losses are what makes you figure out how to get better. And so that's when I knew that no matter how much money you could make in administration, if you don't enjoy what you do every day, then you need to go back to that. So I was lucky. I grew up, my dad was a high school coach, went into administration. So I had good people to call on and get advice.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of things there that stand out to me. It's like enjoying the problem solving side of it. You know, I think at the end of the day, like, you know, this is a game that we coach, right? And it's just fun trying to put those pieces together, trying to solve those issues. And I know like sometimes being up till 1 a.m, taking notes, it can be a little tiring. Like physically as a human being. But like you said, if you love it, like that stuff's just, it's easy to work hard when you love what you're doing, right?
You know, and you say work, and people always say find a job that you don't consider work.
Exactly.
And so, you know, when I get up and I'm going to the gym, it's excitement, and it's every day is a new day. It's a chance to develop your kids. You know, as you know what we're doing, but it's a game,
right.
And we all want to win, but it's a game that can teach you how to be successful in life.
Right. And you said something this morning. I was at your guys' practice at BBC, and you were talking about gratitude, right? And I think about that a lot. Like whenever I have that gratitude and I'm grateful for what I'm experiencing or what I'm doing, you know, it makes it so easy to dive in, because like when you're grateful for the opportunity, you want to squeeze it, right? And so that's where, like, not only do you love the work, so the practices are fun, because that's, you know, game day is great. Game day is what everybody sees. But I think the true mark of a coach is their practice and their preparation. You know, like if your team's not prepared, what are we really doing? You know, and I think a good ATO, a good, like, you know, adjustment at halftime, like that's important, certainly. But the preparation, and like when you're grateful for what you're doing and you love it, like you said, I think that just becomes worlds easier.
Right. And I think in today's society, teaching kids about being humble, being grateful, not having entitlement is important.
Right.
And so, you know, we want kids to learn life lessons when they play for us. And it's not always fun to play for us. You know, we're tough and we push them and we get on them. But at the end of the day, we also love them.
Right. And I think that makes it easier whenever you are tough on them, right?
Right.
So having that rapport and that relationship.
The bottom line is kids want discipline. I think they enjoy it. They don't always know that when it starts, but they don't want discipline if there's not a relationship and if they don't know you care.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm passionate about what I do. Our kids know that. When they mess up, I'm passionate when I get on them.
Right.
And when they do well, I'm passionate when I'm cheering them on.
Of course. You mentioned your dad. In your early coaching years, like first of all, what were some takeaways from your first couple of years as a coach at the high school level? And then how crucial was your relationship with your dad with your coaching career? Like how much did he stand out to you or help you?
Oh, my dad was, you know, he was my best friend. And so early on coaching, my first year was his last year as a head coach. And we were both ranked in the top 10, both won districts and had a chance to meet in the Final Four. Unfortunately, we both got knocked off. But seriously, in my early years, you know, I won district my first year.
Right.
And I just thought that was what you're supposed to do. I thought it was pretty easy. And I went quite a few years before the next district championship came.
Really?
And so, again, I think you take things for granted. I was very lucky that my dad was an assistant for me and sit on the bench for 7 years.
Yeah.
We got to experience 2 Final Fours, a state championship. And so, you know, I think that, again, I think it comes with life lessons. And when you win early, you think that's how it's supposed to be.
Right.
And then as you go through your coaching career and you meet people who have never won a district championship, you know, throughout our run at Walnut Grove, we kind of took things for granted.
Right.
And, you know, it started with our girls program when I was there. You know, when we won our first district championship, we had signs out leading all the way to our sectional game.
Right.
You know, by the end, when we won districts, there wasn't signs. That was
expectation. Yeah.
You know, and so I tell people all the time, enjoy the moment because you don't know when it's going to come again.
Right. That's so important too. Like, I think as an athlete, like when I was in high school, as you know, blessed with great teammates, great coaching, and you know, we were 103-17 in those 4 years, 2 Final Fours. never won it like you guys did, came up short. But, you know, my first coaching job, even at the high school level, I stepped on as a volunteer assistant out at Longmont High School in Colorado. And, you know, Coach Closter, been coaching there about 25 years, the most 20-win seasons in Colorado over that time span, at a Class 4 school, borderline Class 5. And, you know, our first year we're undefeated till the state championship, and we lose in overtime. And, you know, even though that loss hurt, you know, like that's 3 state championships I've lost now, it was still, you know, more winning. And then I saw an opportunity to quote unquote move up the ladder, and I took a JV coach, head assistant coach position at another Class 4 school just up the road that had no tradition, brand new head coach, and expected to be able to step in and, like, you know, take what I know and help us, you know, change the guard and move it up to the next level. And my goodness, was I wrong. It takes so much time. Even if you know everything you're doing, like, you walk in somewhere that isn't accustomed to that. And I got to see it, you know, now I look back and it's a blessing, because I'm like, you know, I have perspective. I see it from both ends. Like, it is difficult to build something, right? And I'm sure, like, from your first district championship that first year to your next one, you maybe felt some of the same.
Right. You know, you go through, and you've got to be lucky. Mm-hmm. Because when you go into a new program,
right,
you can tell them and coach and all that, but if you don't have some success, mm-hmm. then you lose some credibility.
Right.
My first year at Morrisville, I came in, mm-hmm. and took a girl's job. They were 2-22 the year before I got there.
Right.
And our first game, we were at Clever. Mm-hmm. And we were down 1. I called timeout, brought them over, drew up a set. We ran the set perfect, got a backdoor cut for a layup, mm-hmm. made the basket,
right,
and beat them. If we lose that game, mm-hmm. maybe that, you know, we ended up going 16-10 that year.
Right.
21-6, 21-4 the next 2 years. Mm-hmm. So, but that one game could have changed the whole outcome, right, of how we.
It could have been another case of, oh, well, here we go again.
Exactly. And so,
and honestly, that's, and I hate to interrupt, but that's kind of what I dealt with out at that job that wasn't as good, is we lost 8 games that year by 5 points or less. You know what I mean? And so, like, it's just, holy cow, if you can just get the first 1 or 2 of those to go your way.
It's a mindset. You know, mm-hmm. when I went to El Dorado Springs,
right,
they were 8-17. And when I went in, they said, if you can go 8-17, mm-hmm. it'll be a great year. And we ended up going 17-8.
Right.
But our kids
flipped the script.
Our kids bought in,
right,
and they played so hard. And so, if you have the ability to get kids to buy in and play hard, mm-hmm. then it gives you a chance to be successful.
Of course, yeah. I mean, you can even the playing field in so many ways.
And people ask how you do that. And honestly, if I knew how we got kids to play hard,
right,
we'd write a book and sell it.
True. You know, I think every situation's a little different. You know, Drew Hanlon always talks about that secret sauce being the relationships, like you mentioned earlier. And, you know, when we're talking about that, it's from the development side. But I think it does impact a little bit of what you're talking about, right? It's a whole lot easier to play hard when you're having some fun and you like doing what you're doing, you know? And I think, you know, I've seen, and I've even done them in the past, like some toughness drills, like the gauntlet, mm-hmm. or this or that and the other. And those are great once in a while, you know? But whenever you have a team that struggles with playing hard or toughness, I don't know that you can beat it into them. You know,
and
it probably depends on the kids, right?
I don't know about drill. I mean, again, I think it comes down to a personality, mm-hmm. and
that's fair, and
the ability, again, and you've seen it in our practices, to relate,
right,
to kids.
Of course,
the way I can relate and talk, mm-hmm. to our players,
right,
works for me. Mm-hmm. Somebody else that came in and tried to do what I do. Yeah. It probably doesn't work.
Right.
And I mean, you were there this morning and, mm-hmm.
saw
our interactions with some of our kids.
Right.
And so It's being you, being who you are, and not trying to be somebody else.
Man, that rings so true in everything, though, right? I think I had to find out too. I think often we look at really good players and expect them to be good coaches, and it's a whole other skill set, as you know. Like we can definitely draw on our experiences as good players and like take some of those lessons we learned or the perspective and apply it. But when I played, I was an over communicator. I was very loud. I was like the kid chirping on defense, the kid talking on offense, making things move. And so whenever I started coaching, and I was I love this game, so I'm super passionate, I thought that a good coach had to be like yelling and talking every moment, right? And I think where it really flipped for me, like both on the sideline and especially in practices or workouts even today, is just understanding that I see, and this is just me personally, it's not maybe the same for everybody, but for me, I see the game a lot better when I calm down and I don't like get super fired up. I can have that fire in here,
right?
But I can kind of articulate it in a more calm manner. And then B, it helps that I'm only 27, so I can take some of the dad jokes or some of the references to pop culture and kind of relate to kids. And it doesn't always have to be super serious jumping down.
Right, and I think you summed it up. I was a good high school player,
right?
And I went and played college, and was a very, very average college player.
Fair.
And in high school, I did some things because a coaches allowed me to get away with,
right?
Because of my ability, and was not as good as I could have been because I didn't have somebody that held me to the grindstone, held me to the fire and said, I don't care how good you are, do it this way.
Right.
And I think as a coach, I've drawn on that. Then I know when you have a player that is slacking or wants to have an attitude and doesn't, because I've been there. I was that player.
Right.
And then I've been in college where I was an average player and, had to work, and then sometimes didn't work as hard as I should have because I wanted to feel sorry for myself.
Right.
And maybe didn't buy in as much. So I have those perspectives. And then I think you summed it up when you said, for me, if I stay calm,
right,
if I sit back. And I think every coach is different.
It's different.
If I sit there and do that, my kids have a hard time playing hard for me.
Right.
Because they see me in practice of how I'm going to be.
Right.
And so if I sit there, and I've tried that, but it's not my personality.
It's just being authentic, what
right.
I mean? Like,
it's, Coach Schaefer, Rogersville, we've coached against each other.
Right.
Dadeville.
Yes, sir. My brother played for him.
So, Coach Schaefer sits there and probably gets as mad, and he sits there and it just keeps it all in.
Oh yeah.
And then he goes to the locker room and blows up.
Right.
Where mine, I'll get it out right then, and then we go on.
Right.
But
and neither one is right or wrong.
Right. Coach Schaefer can't coach like me. I can't. But both have had a lot of success.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, you see that at all levels and in all industries. Truthfully, I think. And I don't want to pontificate as to whether it's harder these days versus when it, way back in the day. You've been coaching almost as long as I've been alive, so I have no idea. But
coaching is coaching.
I think authenticity
exactly
today is as valuable as ever. It's easy to be a caricature of ourselves or to kind of show the world something we want them to see. But I think as human beings, we have an incredible ability to sniff BS from a mile away. And it's just hard for players to relate to you, right? And then, it probably doesn't help with the rest of, there's a lot of politics in coaching. So I think parents and administration can tell if you're not being yourself. And if you're being yourself, if you're willing to, die on your own sword and kind of, stick to your convictions, that goes a long way.
I think at the end of the day, you summed it up, and that is you heard us today at practice.
Mm-hmm.
You heard my conversation
right.
with kids. You're not fooling anybody.
No.
But here's the bottom line. As a coach, you have to have a belief, and you have to stick to your, if you believe in something, is it worth losing your job over to do what, and it's going to happen. And coaching, it's like they say, you either been fired or you're going to be fired. If you're in coaching long enough, that's going to happen. And so, to be successful, you have to have knowledge and believe in it. But honestly, you better have a supportive wife and family.
Oh, amen.
And we've been there. My wife has said, you know what you do, do what you do. And if they don't like it, we'll go somewhere that wants to be successful.
Right.
And so, if you constantly are trying to please somebody, you're going to please nobody, and you're going to be in trouble in the end.
And honestly, and I know this firsthand, having a wife that's supportive of the amount of time that a good coach has to invest. You know what I mean? There's times where I'm home, but I'm not really home.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm watching film.
I tell people all the time, a coach's wife is the toughest job.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know how many times that Dana has told me, go out there and scout.
Right.
I'm like, she's like, if you lose this game because you didn't go watch.
Right.
And so,
that's on you. Don't make it my fault.
Right. And that's the key to success. They understand. If your wife understands,
right.
it takes time. And I don't think a lot of coaches understand that. I don't think, their wives get upset if they're at the gym late, or if they have,
right.
And
it makes your job harder.
It's not an 8 to 5 job.
No.
It's a 24-hour, you have, and even now, especially now, I've taken a college position.
Right.
So now I've added 17 kids that are just like my own kids that now, and you say in high school, yeah, they're our team, they're your kids. They are. Yeah. But they have families that they go home to every night. Now
they're young men, most of them away from home.
Right. And you are the person that you're in charge of all of them, and they come to you. And so, my family went from 4 to 21 now.
Plus, you took the athletic director job as well.
Exactly.
So it's just, there's a whole other side of it that's just not even basketball.
Right.
Tell me about, running it back to Final Fours and, thinking about that. I know as well as you do, we can, as we talk about past experiences, we kind of almost water it down sometimes to the highlights. I want you to think, and it might take a moment, I don't know, or it might not, but think about your 6 Final Fours and some little memory that stands out to you that maybe you haven't talked about as much. So not necessarily what happened during a game, it's a pivotal moment, or the cliche things, but I'm thinking something funny in the hallway, something on the bus, stuff that win or lose, me speaking as a loser, making it 2 Final Fours, nothing to show for it. There's still a lot of really funny little memories that stand out to me, or pivotal moments that nobody saw,
Well, there's a couple. One, our first Final Four with Walnut Grove's boys, we did an interview with Jordan Burton.
Okay.
And I rolled in on a hoverboard to the interview through the hallways of the hotel. We were a group that was Final Four bust for that.
Right.
The next year, first night we're in Columbia, and we go out to eat at Steak and Shake. And as we are walking in, Advance bus pulls up.
Right.
And Jaron Dishman says, he looks at their bus and says, let's find an outdoor park and settle it right now. And we were just laughing, and we went in and ate, and they showed up, and there was a lot of tension, even though we didn't know each other, but we knew we were both pretty good teams.
Of course.
And we left and ended up facing them in the state championship game and beating them. And so, those are things that nobody sees, and really nobody sees. The one thing that I wish I could go back and do again, and I would tell every coach to do if they get to Final Fours is enjoy it.
Right.
And that being said, I was blessed to get to 6.
Of course.
And I said it after each one and still never really got to, because you're so caught up in
there's a lot of preparation,
getting ready for the game, and then when if you win, getting ready for the next. And I was at 5 Final Fours, or 6 Final Fours, and 5 of them we played for the state championship. And so when you win, now you're worried about the next team, and so there really wasn't ever any time to sit back and just relax and enjoy. And I know some coaches that went there with the attitude, and they did enjoy it. They enjoyed the whole experiment, the experience, and they relaxed. And again, I think how I was cut out, the cloth I'm cut out of, there was no relaxing. It was just like, now what do I have to do to, and that you put on a front to your kids, hey, we're relaxed, we got this. We're good. But, they don't know that I'm going into the room trying to figure out how can we keep this game close.
Of course.
So, but I just think that as coaches, if you sit back and you started out at the very beginning, it's a game. And so if you are blessed to get there, and we tried to make it fun for our kids. We had lots of activities, but at the end of the day, did we sit back and really just soak it all in, or we were so focused?
There's still like that looming goal that's right there. You're so close to achieving it. I remember the first Final Four I played in. Whenever we had it was the night before, everything had settled down, like all of our activities that day and whatnot, and I was just in the hotel room, and Trent Bergman was my roommate. We were always like roomed together, and I was just laying there like looking at the ceiling, and I was like, dang man, like we've been literally trying to do this for 7 years and we're here, and it's just so hard to go to sleep, because like you said, like you try to have all the fun in the world, but then like the competitor in you is just like, man, I'm right here, and it makes it hard to enjoy sometimes. I wish like now, like, there's vlog culture. Like you see a bunch of vloggers on YouTube and whatnot. Like I think every single school, I wish we had done this, which it wouldn't have been a thing at the time. But I wish every single school would take that student manager, that 8th grader that's lugging water for you guys, and put a camera in that kid's hand and just make him film the whole day.
The whole experience.
The whole day.
And it's like you said, we got there the first year, to get to a Final Four, you have to be good. But you have to be lucky. The first year we got there, a team that we had beat by 48 points in February had us down at halftime. Had us down 5 going into the 4th quarter of the sectional game. Our second year, so we get beat in the state championship. We come back, really had just lost Dallas as a starter and returned 4 starters, and start the year off 18-0, and
that's when the pressure builds. I felt that.
We get beat by Rogersville, our first loss, but we're playing good at the end of the year. We play Hermitage in the quarterfinals, and we're down 10 in the first quarter. Tied at halftime. End up winning in overtime, and they had a shot to beat us at the buzzer of regulation. So we go from possibly not getting to the Final Four to winning a state championship. It's
a small window.
It's that small of a difference. And so, the next year, we're as good as any team in the state at the start of the year, and Hunter Gilkey breaks his finger. And
he was out for a good portion.
He was out 10 games. And so we finally learned how to play without him.
And
we get pretty good. And when he comes back, he messes everything up. We don't know how to play. But by the end of the year, we get to the state semifinal, and we're drawing a team that's undefeated.
Right.
Probably the best team in Class 1. And beat them. Right. And then the next night, we have to come back and play in the afternoon, and you know, did not come ready to play, and got beat by a team that was very good, but you know, made a big run. But there's such a small margin that if you are not ready, at any moment you can be knocked off.
Yep. And I think that rolls back to, like, if you're grateful for the situation, there's no reason you're not prepared to take advantage of the opportunities. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not grateful, and you kind of overlook it, right? But even then, there's some level of luck, like you said.
Well, it's luck, but I think I think gratitude, being humble,
right?
Because if you don't appreciate it, if you haven't done what's necessary, right, you probably don't deserve. And we've been in situations where, you know, we've had a lot of talent at times, but karma is a crazy thing, and sometimes, you know, some of the things you do, it'll come back to get you. And so, again, we talk about it, and you talk about it. Don't take it for granted, and be appreciative.
Not at all. You know, we're talking about, like, being appreciative of those experiences, trying to find the joy in it. How do you think that applies to? I know you do a lot of work with All Missouri Attack. How do you think that applies to the club scene? Like, if you had to check the pulse on club basketball, like, what would your thoughts be as it relates to, you know, your experience as a high school coach?
I think if you're with a good program,
right,
it's a great situation.
Right.
And I think the problem is sometimes high school coaches and their summer programs don't work together. And I think there's a conflict or a jealousy. And, you know, I always encourage, you know, of course we run Attack, but I encourage our kids to play. I bring coaches in. I bring skill trainers in to work with our kids, because I want them to get a different view, a different voice. But I think there's a lot of bad programs out there. And if your sole goal is to go to big tournaments, or if they're telling you they're going to get you scholarships, I think the goal of summer is the same for our program, the same as high school, and that is to build relationships, to play hard, to play the right way. And so that's how we build our program in the summer. We go play in some tournaments and some big tournaments, but more than anything, we want our kids to play the right way and act the right way.
Yeah, I think that's important. You know, for so many, like, and this could be players, parents, coaches, that scholarship turns into the North Star. I know it did for me for a little while. And, you know, we forget that hopefully you're here because you love basketball. You know, I see far too many kids that are kind of on the fence of whether or not they even want to play in the summer, but mom and dad are pushing them to it. Exactly. I see it the other way around sometimes, where, like, mom and dad don't really want to facilitate it for whatever reason, and, you know, kids really want to do it, like, really badly. It's, at the end of the day, it's an opportunity to get better, of course, right? But if you love playing basketball and you find some good people to play it with, like, it should be a really good experience, right?
And that is exactly. If all you care about is a scholarship, save your money, put it in the bank, and all the money you spend for skills trainers, summer programs, you can go to any college you want. Yeah. But you summed it up. If you can play with a good group of kids, you can build lifelong relationships, and you can have fun doing it, and travel to different places and experience things that you wouldn't experience with your high school team, then it's a great situation.
Well, and, like, even, like, you know, I'm in player development now full time and don't coach club or high school at the moment. Every kid I train is not going to get a scholarship. They're not all going to be a pro. I've never once tried to sell that either. You know, I think at the end of the day, what we work on every single workout is conquering adversity in one way or another, is being uncomfortable and eventually working through it to where we are comfortable, right? And I think that, and then like the interpersonal skills where we have to work with others. That, I think that's the other great thing that club ball can do when done right, is you have to figure out in a very short period of time how to gel as a team with a bunch of kids from all over. And, workouts are very much the same way. Is like, can we figure out how to, we each have our own selfish goals, but can we be selfless enough to achieve them together?
Exactly. Right? And play, and you, like you said, everybody comes from a different background. Mm-hmm. And if you have 4 kids that were the best players on their team, right, they can't all 4 be the best on this team.
So it takes some humility and work.
So how can we work together to make us now the best as a group? Mm-hmm. And, it's fun. Again, people ask, how do you're coaching a BBC and you're still running All Missouri Attack. We just added 4 girls teams for next year.
Right.
How do you do that? In a couple things. Number one, I have good people that work with me.
Yeah, you have to delegate. So,
and they do a great job of keeping. But the other thing is, it's fun. Yeah. If you love the game, it's fun. You're going and coaching.
You can't imagine taking the whole summer off.
What are you going to do all summer?
Right. You mentioned BBC. You took the athletic director job in the spring, I believe. Is that correct?
February.
Okay, so late winter, early spring, whatever the heck you want to call it. Depends on the state you're in, I suppose. Can you talk a little bit about like the situation you were walking into, and then like the preparation you've had to do since that time, and not just as a coach, you're having to kind of like set up your culture, your program, bring in new kids, all that stuff, but also as an athletic director. Like, what's the goal, I guess, and how's it been so far?
Well, when I took over, it was in a bad situation, probably worse than I even understood.
Right.
They had no athletic programs at all. They had suspended their basketball program in January. Mm-hmm. And so, you take over and you're excited, and I'll go get players, and
right.
And honestly, getting the players, there's lots of players out there, and really, the more you're involved and get out and recruit and talk, the more players you find, and you get out of your inner circle, right, and your little local circle. That was big for us, is to recruit some local kids, though, to build some excitement in the area.
Yeah.
As far as the AD part, probably 100 times more work than what I really thought was going to be with it. Mm-hmm. Fundraising is huge. Mm-hmm. We are having to be self-supported this year, so we have to raise all our money. Right now, I think we have raised. The men's basketball program has brought in about $62,000.
Wow.
For this year.
Well, like you said, like you're basically starting from scratch.
Right. But it's exciting because I can go out. Next year we're adding women's volleyball, women's basketball, men's soccer, and men and women's golf.
That's awesome. That's a lot of sports.
So I have the ability now to go hire coaches.
Right.
That are bought into the same dream and vision that I have. Right. That we're going to go out and get recruits in, so we can watch our athletic program grow. We can watch the college grow.
Of course.
We can watch the budget grow because we're generating more money. So
right.
I'm really excited where we're going. There'll be growing pains as we go.
Right.
But again, I think the key, you bring in good people that are on the same page as you and give them the ability to run their program, good things will happen.
Of course. And then, how's the preseason gone so far? I know you guys just finished your first week of official practice, right?
Right.
How's it going with the new kids and like kind of establishing your culture, so to speak?
Awesome. I mean, really, these kids, and we brought in kids, we talked about today, from different backgrounds, different areas, and they are figuring out how to become a team, how to become a family. I think our mindset is getting there. They understand how we're going to play and the style, and so it's exciting. We preseason from the middle of August. We started on Monday with official practice, and when you're in preseason, everybody gets to play, and you can come in the next day and you're still going to be on the team to go up and down. Right. Once you get to practice, things are a little different. And but the positive thing, or the best thing about it, is they're all cheering each other on. They're awesome. All about each other. And so now we preach that constantly, because it doesn't just happen.
Yeah. Like, you get what you emphasize.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we talk about daily. When you become more concerned about the guy next to you than you do about yourself,
right,
that's when we will be successful.
If you can give more value than you take at the end of the day. Right. I can't wait to watch you guys this year. It's been kind of fun watching you, start the program, like, with your career in February and kind of the new era, and staying connected with you as you've been doing that. Like, I know there's a lot of work I don't even know about. And, it's been cool seeing the kids this preseason and what you guys have been doing. I know, like, there's definitely going to be growing pains, but, I'm looking forward to watching you guys this year. I think it'll be good.
We're excited, and all that you've done for us, for Attack, at Walnut Grove helping us,
right,
BBC. When you see our schedule, we're looking through the schedule today when you were in there working them out.
Right.
Coach Mercer's like, what level are they? We're trying to see at what point are we going to get a win before Christmas. And as you know, money's important.
You got to really challenge yourselves early.
So we've got Division IIs, we've got big NAIAs on the program. And so it's tough. Right. But I think in the long run, where we're trying to get, all those things are going to make us better.
And it would be tempting to make the early easy.
Right.
I know that I definitely know there's coaches that would be tempted to do that.
And we've talked to people that are in our level that are like, are you seriously playing your first 2 games back to back against 2 NAIA national qualifiers? I'm like, yeah, it's going to make us better. And
right.
You've seen our kids. You saw us at the beginning. Where they came in and where they're at 6 weeks later.
They've already grown. Yeah.
And there's kids that are going to make mistakes, and we learn and grow, and we come back the next day and get better.
I think that's what it's about, right? Well, Coach, I'm going to leave you to it. I appreciate having you on. Thank you for the time. And like I said, first episode. So, as you know.
Hey, the good thing about starting with me is you can. There's only one way to go, and that's up. I appreciate it, brother.
I appreciate it, Coach.